every section of law is distinct to itself, but yet all law as a whole, but you have to take the law as a whole. You kind of how to explain this? English law is based on a certain contract, and all law is derived from that contract. So, since we're talking about something that is so far down the line, like, because this is municipal law, right? Before municipal law, we didn't have to go through this part, because in the 1600s, the exchange would be by right. The accepted part, right, for the new modern land tenures is by library by cession, right? That's how the acceptance is now. But on the old system, we actually had to go in and swear homage to the king and things like that, right? It was actually done by an actual ceremony, right, and so on and so forth. Whether it was in the court.
Is that the reason why in Parliament, when they still have to, go through the prayers at the beginning or whatever it is?
Yeah, that's right. That's part of the administration for that system, right? And to join that system, we have to do certain things, right? And like when King William usurped the throne in 1066, it was just forced. There was no homage or nothing. Right? And you'll notice that from 1225, the last Magna Carta, well, it's not really the last Magna Carta, but it's the first Magna Carta that they actually abided by. All the previous Magna Cartas from 1225 previous, they ignored completely. Right? And that's why the people were going to go after the king again, right? Because Statute of Westminster first came out, and he ignored the Magna Carta, because the Magna Cartas were actually about our lands as donors, right? And guaranteeing certain rights by us granting them the lands, right? Because before King William, the monarchy was even elected. The people actually voted for the monarchy, right? And before King William, everybody had allodium land. So everyone was absolute owner of the lands, and no one could come and take your lands for anything. If you went and borrowed $5 from the king,
just repeat that.
He couldn't come and take you off your land. He could come and take a cow. The monarchy couldn't come and take you off the lands if you borrowed $500, right? They couldn't come and kick you off your lands, but he could come and take a cow, but only if you had 2 or 3 other cows.
Okay, and it wasn't leaving you with nothing to survive.
He couldn't destitute you to make you right, because that is the reason why you would have you would lose everything, is because the interest. Like that's why usury was actually made unlawful, right? And it was this equitable system, right? Because it's always been equity in a sense. Because it's always been, ever since King William took the throne, everybody only got a use of the lands. Because he took the lands from everybody and made them into a subject, right? And they had to give homage. And then as the new systems came into place, there was new acceptances for this land tenure. And you'll notice that the current land tenure that Blackstone speaks of, the only difference is that it's now under municipal, and now we have a corporate, right? But that's because in the 1600s, when his East Indian Company was used to transport their law around the world. So we now know, if we look at law of domicile, which is strictly basically English law, we see how they can transport their law. So because you're in the UK and you're an English subject right now, because you haven't gotten your release and everything else, So if you were to go to a landmass that had no other English subjects there ever, and you go there, and you get possession of lands from one of those inhabitants there, and they grant you possession of the lands. Because remember, you still can't be a true owner because you're in English law. So the people on that new territory, you transfer these lands to you in this agreement that you made. You're going to give them a pouch of tobacco every year to have this land, right? And they're thinking, okay, great, I'm getting a pouch of tobacco, and at any time I can have, right? And I'm going to give it back. But they don't know that you're not actually working for the king. So when they give you the land, they're actually giving the king the land because you only have a use of it for what the king says that you can use it for, right? It doesn't matter what that person, that indigenous person, it doesn't matter the agreement that you made with them because you actually put the king between you and that indigenous person. You see what I'm getting at? So the king actually now owns those lands. So what that person did was gave away that territory. So we think that if we look at the history now on how, let's say how they settled North America here in Canada, or even in North America as in the United States as well, right? They brought over a flurry of people to get into contracts with people here that knew nothing about the English law, that were working in their own capacity. Right? They were true owners of the lands. But as soon as they gave them to a subject of the English law, they've now put their lands into a set-to-keep trust through somebody else.
Unknowingly,
right?
But would it not matter what law or jurisdiction that indigenous person might have been a part of?
Okay. So let's look at this as a territorial thing, because remember, jurisdiction is based on who you are, where you're domiciled, right, and what your contracts are. So when we're talking at the very beginning, let's say you're the first person that shows up, and let's just use for reference that they gave you the city, the area of a city of Winnipeg, right? They still have their domicile outside of that city, of that territory that they gave you. Your domicile is that territory that they gave you. So you're still bound by English law because you're always taking lands or moving on to lands that are entitled by purchase, because you've granted your lands to the king. So everything that you go and take, you're actually going taking for the actual king, right? So it's not, you're actually not getting it for yourself because you're working as the king's subject to increase his lands. This indigenous person, because you're the only one in this territory that they granted. So basically you're now like a city of London inside another city, like a different, right? So they're actually outside your jurisdiction. But what happens when I want to back and you're like, okay, well, you have to buy. So that now makes them, right? Because you're only transferring the use.
That just cut
back to them, right? Because you
just start again.
Because they sold you lands, right? And now you're living on those lands as these tenants, so that you want payment for it, right? When they can actually just come and take it, they actually come and buy it from you. So that in English law is making them the new trustee.
Yeah,
So you see
so
how-
regardless of whatever their agreements are, they're still in agreement to this new one, even if they don't know about it all. So,
Exactly.
okay.
So you can see that they play this little game where they come here, we buy lands from them for a pouch of tobacco or whatever, right? And then they run out of lands because we go and buy all their lands from them, right? So now they're left with just this tiny little spot. Now they need more lands. So instead of them going to the courts and taking them back in their proper capacity, right? They go, okay, well, I'll buy it back from you. And that's where that set of key and that fulfillment comes in, because it's a secret trust. Because everybody keeps forgetting that you can only give in the capacity that you currently have. So if you only have a use of something as trustee, and as soon as somebody purchases it from you, they're actually taking over the role of the trustee for that thing. You see what I'm getting at? So that's how they transported. That's why they needed the trading companies, right? And that's why they had to make this verified
offering something.
That's right? And make it perceive like it's this really good deal when it's a really bad deal, right? But actually, that's actually wrong. It's actually a really good deal if we actually understand it. Because if we're not in use of those lands, why can't we give that use to somebody else for them to pay us for it? The problem comes in is when we want those lands back. We go and we purchase them back from them. And instead of going to their boss, which is the Queen's bench judge, is the only one that's actually working as the capacity as the king, right? Or the Queen, right? And that's why it's called the Queen or King's bench. Because they're actually working, they are actually acting as the king and queen.
Figure. Yeah.
That's right. Because the king, let's face it, the king and queen do not have the time to sit in a court to deal with, now look at how many billions of subjects they have. Right? Like in 1066 up to like 1200, it still wasn't possible. The king tried
That's why
to
they
sit
made
in
the case
court.
law, wasn't it? That he got all of his, top judges
That's right.
to sit around.
That's right. Exactly. That's why the judges make the. So if we look at if we actually look at this, it's actually the judges that forced the monarchy to write all these statutes, all these remedies that are in
That are inside what?
right? Because it had to go in front of the judge first to know. All these cases had to come across the judge's desk first. In order for them to know that they needed to make a remedy for it, handle it, and deal with it, right? The judge is never in a courtroom. The judge doesn't see any of. The king doesn't see any of this stuff. The king's never in a courtroom, right? He's appointed specific people to act for his best interest, right? And they're also under a specific contract. Right? And you notice we never get to see this contract. We only have an act of legislation.
Which is why they will follow what we're asking them to, as long as it's correct.
That's right. And it's in the correct capacity, because everybody keeps thinking that law is a blanket term for everybody and everything, when it's not. And that's why we have, even with the fee simple, there's so many levels of rights and duties, right? It's the same for everybody at each capacity. When we look at it as a whole, the judges are in a different capacity than the police, right? So it really makes sense that they had to. It really makes sense that they actually had to add it on and make that, and then they had to make that for a strict function of government only. See how there's a different law in fee simple where one is acting without any, and then we have another division that are just the government.
Skipping really back.
every single level inside English law has its own capacity. That means that a judge had to go and accept an agreement to be sitting as a judge. So now, because he accepted those extra duties, he's not a Queen's Bench judge is not bound by the Constitution. They're bound by the laws of the common law. Government are bound by the Constitution because they went and volunteered for extra rights and duties to be managing certain areas of that business, right? Because it's a business. We got to remember that these are just land trust companies that are regulating accounting for the uses and trust jurisdiction, right? Because we got to remember that 1600s, the monarchy granted Parliament to the people. Right? So as of the 1600s, the people started creating their own laws and equity. But the monarchy has to sign off on every single law because they're acting as the trustee. They're the ones that gave the use, right? So the people can create and change all the use laws that they want, but they can never change the law to the land tenure. Because that's our original contract with the monarchy that goes back to 1066, right?
And is that because they essentially don't have privity to that area?
Well, that's why they created this corporate person and municipality thing and gone to C, because C as in SEA and SEE are both the same, and they're actual jurisdiction, right? And they're equitable jurisdictions where equitable, in the strictest term, is where you only have a use of the thing and you do not have true ownership. So when we look at how the meaning of equity has changed now to only having a use of something and not true ownership, that can actually now go back to the start of English law on Christmas Day, which is December 25th, 1066, when King William was crowned, right? And these things will actually start coming into play with Christianity and Christendom and those things, and it's all going to tie in later on with everybody as they keep digging farther and farther into this. And a good note here is library companies were started in 85 AD. And this is very important because the library companies are the guilds. Library companies are the electricians, the plumbers, all the actual tradesmen. So when we look at library by session, right? We can see that the library has actually been a part of the plan from the very beginning, right? Because of these guilds in the City of London Corporation, because they're the ones that actually run all these library companies, and that's where you come and work for somebody comes into play, right? Because a library in session is basically stating that, I'm working for you as a corporate fiction, and because I'm working for you as a corporate fiction, I cannot own lands in my own absolute capacity, so I'm also accepting being seized of my lands. So that's where library by session comes in, and it's kind of important to point that out because you'll notice that all these things are all about who you work for, right? So, and until we start working for ourselves, we're kind of granting all that away. So that's why the deed of release goes into what it does, because you can never release your absolute rights and duties. You cannot give up your natural rights. You can only put an agreement in front of it, right? So you have your natural rights that say life, liberty, and land. Well, if you choose to, you can give me your land and become my subject and go work for me if you choose. But you have to choose that now. Right? Because in 1688, you got granted the freedom after they put this contract into place. Right? And that's an interesting point of fact, because even though everybody even though they granted everybody their freedom after the fact of the creation of this contract, everybody still went and accepted the contract and are fulfilling that contract, right? Which is going in titles by descent and purchase, right? So that titles by descent was when our very first ancestor joined the feud and they granted lands, right? They descended in title, right? Because they were true ownership and they descended down to only a use, right? And then what happens? Our parents go and get us to go to school, then go out and buy some land, right? And then if we don't go and buy some land, like back in the old days, the parents actually transfer the land to us. Right? So when they descended in title, they went down to a use only. So everyone that they give that title to after they descend is actually them taking on that contract and all the agreements to it. Right? So it's just followed on down since then. And then they created municipal law. So you have this corporate person, because you got to remember, before you weren't 3 degrees away. You actually had to go give homage to the king. So you're not in trust law. Once you're past 3 degrees, you're now the usufruct. You have no privity to it. You're volunteering to it.
No.
So with those laws that they created and uses and trusts, by stating that is why they created the corporate person, because that adds another level between you and your trust. So now you grant to the monarchy. The monarchy creates a corporation, a land trust company, a government, and then we go and volunteer to that corporation by going in and taking on a title by purchase, or going and taking on our lands from our parents that gave homage to library by cession, right? So when we look at that, we've actually made ourselves 3 degrees away. So that's where we lose our privity of the state, because, and that's why they made us gone to sea, because it's already established in law that once you're so many degrees away, you're an interloper, pretty much, right? Third-party interloper, and you only have the rights and duties that you agreed to. But yet, because you volunteered to it, if you don't fully complete it as stated, you're liable for it, right? So all these things are basically going along the same lines as that. So we'll notice that the corporate person is what brings us on to sea and takes the privity of the estate of the donor's estate away. So that's why after the 1600s, this new form of release for the corporate person is completely new. It was never needed to be done any time before that, because we went directly ourselves and pledged homage. Right? We still volunteered, but we volunteered with full notice and everything else, because we actually went in and did a ceremony, right? This is all, the notice is there, but if you're ignorant, you're not going to have any clue, right? Because you're not being asked to stand up and swear to this stuff and blah, blah, blah. So that's where this release comes in, is because the corp, like even it says you can't have a title and statute of use, and also a title at common law, right? Because you got to remember, when we grant one estate to the monarchy, and they split it into two, because she can't give away true ownership. She can only give somebody else a use of it, because she can only give ownership back to the one who granted it to her. Because we actually have never granted true ownership to her. We've only granted her a trust.
And that's why we can always go back.
That's
and
right.
join it back into one.
That's right. And by them using the word trust means that they don't have a choice. Right? She's only assumed the characteristics of ownership, just like all other trustees. They don't actually own the thing. They've just assumed the ownership with a legal right to administer that estate. Right? So once we take that assumption and contract away, now the monarchy and the government and the citizen don't have any rights to it because you granted the monarchy. Monarchy created the government. The government granted by license to the citizen with full notice of the trust because they've got a title by fee simple absolute. Well, the fee is stating that you're seizing your lands. The simple absolute is conveying the warranty annexed in law to our trust. Right? And that's why they call it a true inheritance in Coke upon Littleton, because and why it's an injury, because we've actually granted away to somebody else for no benefit to ourselves until terminated, because the Sedeki V is a different trust than any other kind of trust. Right? It was before the Sedeki V Act, it was used by citizens and other people to hide things. As soon as you made a Sedeki trust with somebody, it hid that asset. So let's say I had these lands and I gave them to you and I had them as true owner, and I didn't actually no, that's not how this is working. Because everybody in fee simple had to pay a tax and everything else and fee for the lands. So I could transfer it to you in a Sedeki trust, and now they believe that you own it, so now they're not going to come and try to tax me for it. See what I'm getting at? So it was kind of used as a way to offset taxes and to scam the government out of the taxes that the people agreed to pay because they're in a use. Because remember, when we look at the equitable use, everybody has to do taxes and pay their income and everything else, because everything they do is a waste of their true inheritance. So they have to keep track of the waste for the true owner.
They've got to pay that pouch of tobacco, haven't they?
That's right. They got to pay not only that pouch of tobacco, but they got to pay the interest and everything else. Right? Because you granted your lands away for an equitable interest to the monarchy. Right? Remember that's what a trust is? So when we actually realize that this trust is us granting it away to somebody else till we want it back, and it's just like right now, if you decided to go buy another house, you couldn't live in two houses at once. So why not rent it out, right? And if fiat wasn't your thing, you could rent it out for a box of apples a month. You kind of see what I'm getting at? But whatever the fee you choose is yours. It's not the monarchy's. Right? So because a trust, anytime that you grant a trust, that trustee has to benefit the trust in order to pay for their own fees as well. Because if we made a trust and just said, okay, well, you don't have to do anything with it, you can just suck from it. Well, by the time that they're done holding that trust, there's nothing left. Because they just sucked it all out of it. That's why a trustee is required to make it produce, perform. Right? So it actually, because the trustee has two jobs. Has to make it so he benefits the beneficiary, right?
So duties.
That's right. So those are the rights and duties. They have to make that trust perform, but only within the bounds of the contract. Right? So we gave them everything. We gave them no bounds or anything else. All it is we get a certain percentage off of everything that comes off the land for the group. Because English law, it's kind of like a biker gang. You know, like you got your motorcycle, and then during the button to join the group, you got to grant them your motorcycle, right? And when you leave the group, it's still their motorcycle. If you choose to leave, you got to ask them back for your motorcycle. If they choose to give it back to you, right? They'll give it back to you, right? So we're kind of talking about a bad biker gang here, right? Because to join the group, right, you got to fight to get your bike back. Right? But the catch is, like the biker gang, you knew you were giving the bike up and that you might not get it back. But with English law, they have to give us our bike back, our lands.
But we just don't know that they have to give it back to us.
That's right, exactly. So it's the difference of knowing the difference that.
And I suppose if we did still have to pay mortgage, then you know, we'd know and we probably would go and ask for our bike back, wouldn't we?
Exactly. And that's why they created this equity thing, is so that people that are ignorant of the law, because you've been reading a lot of the older law books as well, like before 1600s, and it's everywhere. Nobody wants to look at the law. Nobody has any interest, anything about it, right? And it's been this way for pretty much all the time. So if you were the one that was the head of the City of London Corporation and the elite, and you wanted to keep taking, like obviously like they are, because they could have fixed the system. They could have given everybody their trust back with a choice and everything else. They did not have to make it the way they did. Because you got to remember, from 1600s on, we created the laws. The fee simple, right? So we could have educated this in a way that we
benefited us a bit more.
That's right. And it wasn't going to break the secrecy laws, all these other things, right? Just make it so it was educated to people so they could actually see it, right? But they didn't do that. They used it as a complete freaking tyranny, right? And we're doing it to ourselves. That's so getting back to the deed of release now. Yeah. Now we can see that that's why we have. That's why this is a new part, and it's only been since the municipal law, the land trust company, right? Specifically 1925 and on, right? So if people that are going to look before 1925 and follow the statute of use from before the Statute Act, I think it's 1535 is when the statute of use actually came in, and even before that. Huh? Yeah, they're so because we're not tracing the law that created the law that we have today, people aren't able to find how it happened. So they're kind of just stuck with dealing with what they can find right now, and then they don't understand the circumstances that created what we have right now. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So, by the creation of the municipal law, like if we look at law of agency, it specifically states that by you being in municipal law is a disability, right? So a disability in law means that you cannot do anything until that's been dealt with, right? Because you're disabled, right? It's kind of like being found incompetent, right? In today's current system, like you lose all your rights. You got to go and ask somebody now, right? Yeah. And or prove that you're not incompetent, right? In some way, right? Like in all these things, and it basically just keeps boiling down to the exact same thing. It's this new municipal law system is so devious, and I would almost say criminal, but I can't say criminal because
we agree.
It's legal. Yeah, that's right. Everybody's agreed to it. So it can't be criminal.
But it's deceptive, isn't it?
Yes, it's very deceptive. And it doesn't help that they're not actually teaching anybody anything that
even to look in the right place.
Law. Because once people, that's right. Like,
let alone the right information.
Exactly. Like, the good one is that municipal act from the Queen there that I sent you last week. Was that in 6 William?
Yeah.
From King William, and it just blew, like, if people read that, they're just going to be blown away.
Every book you send me is like, it's just crazy.
Like you can't make this stuff up. Like
it is just a story. Like it's like I'm watching a film, or like I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, and that's the issue that people. I don't know how to teach this in a way where the majority of people can actually understand it. That when law is created today, is that any better yet?
Yeah.
Like the hardest thing to teach about law is that the day the law is created, it only affects that day forward. Law does not go backwards. So there has to be an originating law to give it force or effect, or it has no force or effect. So if nobody can find the law that creates that law,
that law is irrelevant.
That's right. It has no force or effect. But yet nobody's wanting to find the force and effect to the law. They just read something on a piece of paper and they say, "Hey, this is that's it," right? And that's where we're coming to the big problem, because sure, it can be law if we ignore jurisdictions and capacities, right? And that's why this deed of release is the way it is, and a release works in many different ways, where we have to release our corporate rights and duties to the government. The government has to give us a deed of release under seal, back releasing us from that and terminating that contract, right? Because only corporations use seals, right? So if anybody's ever going to use a seal on their court document for themselves, they made themselves into a dead fiction, right? So if you're trying to claim reversion and you go and put a red thumbprint, because only corporations use seals. Natural person only uses oaths, because what we say is fact. You see what I'm getting at? So only corporations have to get a sworn affidavit and blah, 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 and all these other things, and get somebody else's seal to be put on it to justify it. Right? So red thumbprints, seals of any kind, are for dead fictions. They only have a use of things because that is you stating that you're working in
capacity of, equity. And
that's right. You're not signing for yourself. You're signing for this, right? So basically, you're under somebody else's rights and duties. Is basically all that you're stating, and you're giving full notice of a trust as well. Right? Like people don't realize that by you seeing a seal on the paper means that person's not working in their own capacity, and that there's actually something else
under behind it.
That's right. There's other things behind it that, if you want full disclosure, that's telling you have to go look now. Right? That's that fireworks. That's right. It should actually almost be like a fireworks going off in your head. Like, hey, we got to stop, and we have to analyze this thoroughly. Like, I mean thoroughly, because that's where everything is. Because you'll notice there are jurisdictions even in that stand, right? Your provincial, your because I believe you have provinces and stuff in the UK, right? Where your territories are
areas. We have counties.
Yeah, you have provinces, and then right, or you don't have provinces.
We have counties.
So the county is the main body for everything inside it, right? So your county would be what Canada's province is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you'll notice that if you got a seal by the seal holder of your county, it states their jurisdiction right on it. Just like if you went to the one that's holding your federal seal, it'll specifically state their jurisdiction on that seal, that it's a federal seal.
Is that almost like when we drive into our counties and our provinces, you see, their road sign, if you will, almost like their stamp of, where you're coming into.
That's you're now entering so and so. That's right. It's stating you are now entering a new jurisdiction, and new laws apply. Right? And those laws depend on who you are. Right? Because all laws are dependent on the individual, on what you've agreed to, because you got to remember, freedom and slavery dictate that we have to choose, right? So as soon as we join the group, we've agreed, we've just tacitly agreed to everything, and we can't pick and choose, right? We have to, as a group, decide to change those laws, right? That's the only way we, as being a part of the group, can change laws, is by getting the group to change it.
And is that why we basically have the councils for those, counties, and those councils obviously run well?
And you'll notice that even how the government is set up, it starts from the bottom up. Right? We have to grant lands into the municipality, right? Then the municipality, right, makes a town, then the town makes a city makes the federal government. Right? Well, we're missing the province, right? City and then a province, right? And then, right, or county in your case, and then you've got the country, right? So those are the levels of incorporation of the group getting bigger, right? And then we have the what's that called again? Where one country and another country make an agreement together where their laws actually apply to both people of both countries. There's a certain specific legal word. And I can't remember what it is because without it, every like Manitoba and Saskatchewan, which are two different provinces, the people which are inside them, like the people that are within Saskatchewan, the laws of Manitoba do not apply to the people in Saskatchewan if they go into Manitoba. But Manitoba and Saskatchewan and all the provinces and even all the countries got into these agreements that state that when somebody from another jurisdiction comes into our jurisdiction, now they're bound by both laws of both jurisdictions, right? Where before these agreements were made, they couldn't do that. Like I'm sure now, like let's talk. Let's use driver's licenses and fines for an example. 10 years ago, if you lost your license in your current county, right? You could go to the next county over and change your address, your residence, right? And you can go and get a driver's license there for no and have no fines or anything else. Remember that? Remember? Like, you could do that here in Canada. You used to be able to go from one. You could get.
You have to think. England's obviously only small, aren't we? You know, we're probably smaller than the whole of BC.
Could terminate, right? Then that would be the amount of time that you'd have in your notice. You kind of see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So there is no notice like that. It's just we just have to be reasonable, right? Because there is no law on the amount of time. It just has to be a reasonable amount of time, and so on and so forth. And the injury comes is when they don't do it. So you don't have to send in any of your stuff or anything else. You don't even have to tilt your hand. You can have all this all set up, ready to go. So you have your claim, your affidavits. You got, right? You basically got your motions set out that you're going to be, right? Because when we look at the court process and everything, it's already kind of laid out. We already kind of know what's going to happen. So we can pretty much be pretty well prepared for the whole thing before we tilt our hand. Right? And as soon as you're ready for that, that's when you send in your deed of release. Because as soon as you send in that deed of release, now you're going to set up fireworks for the government. Like these are you're rocking the boat. Like, you know what I mean? Like hardcore. So it's best, in my opinion, it's best to be prepared so you have it already. So you'd basically get prepared that you'd sell all your assets and everything else. So you're being prepared to do this, so you're putting yourself in the proper position so you can prove that you're not holding any lands, you've released all your rights and duties. You kind of see what I'm getting at? We're basically making out the whole story in one shot. And as soon as a corporation denies to release you as their employee, what does that mean? Isn't that like slavery? You see what I'm getting at? Like if you're working for somebody and you no longer work for them, well, you can't keep working for them.
Sorry, it's playing up a bit.
So basically, options are what the courts are going to look at, not your words. So if you're still holding lands as fee simple and you're still doing all these other things, you're actually going to be showing fact of law that's disputing everything that you're doing. So each section, like the release and the claim of lands, you have to prove certain things. Like with the release, you have to prove that you actually released your rights, duties, and actions. You sent it to them. They've received it. They've either ignored it or told you to go blow, right? And that is your injury right there for the government, right? And then you do the same thing for your claim for your lands, right?
The tenant.
You send notice to the tenant that's holding the lands, and if they don't make a court date to transfer them to you, right, then they're in breach of the law. Just like the government has to make a court date to release you. The government just can't send you a deed of release and be done with it. They have to make a court date, and they have to go in front of the judge, and they have to say, we are releasing this individual, right? Just like the tenant has to come in and say, I'm releasing the capacity of the donor as the law states. And now, and that's where it gets tricky, because if the individual in fee simple that you give notice to actually gives you what you give notice to, there is no injury of waste for that property. You see what I'm getting at? That injury of waste for that property is because he's completely unlawfully broken the law. All right? So the rent of waste for all the things that have been done to that land, actually, because that fee simple individual gave you your lands, right? But who told him he could do the waste to those lands? The government. The government gave him a license to cut those trees, to dig that septic field, to build that house there. He had to have permits and all these things, right, for all this stuff. So now your writ of waste is against the seal holder of the province for giving the authority to this person to break the law. Right? Because we have two laws. We have the law for fee simple, then we have the law for the donor, common law and equity. Right? Equity is the law for the use, and the land tenure is the law for the donor. And while the common law says fee simple can't dig the land, they can't cut a tree, they can't even build a house because they don't have any natural resources to build it with. Because everything everybody uses for everything that they have to get it from our lands, our natural resources. You see what I'm getting at? So that's why there's accounting, and that's why everybody's taxed on all these assets, because they created them from our natural resources, and then they keep using our natural resources, right? You see what I'm getting at? The roadways and everything else, like, that's gravel from my ground that you used to build that roadway, and never mind, it's on top of my ground. Right? Okay? So you kind of see how this is really playing out, and why they don't want this coming. You see what I'm getting at? But because it's kind of it's very powerful, because when people actually get down to the nitty-gritty, it is completely unlawful. It's nobody's ever elected the monarchy or anything else. So yes, could we actually just go in there somewhat flailing our hands and screaming at them, you have nothing, right? And basically walk out of there without being hassled anymore? Yes. But are you going to get your trust back and everything else? No. You kind of see what I'm getting at? Because they can only do those things if you do certain things first, right? That's what a contingency is. And that's all that we're doing here now, is dealing with the contingency, what needs to be done in order for them to be able to do this thing that we want them to do, right? Because they're bound by a law, right? So yeah, we could go to the point of basically abandoning the interactions between men and just saying, screw you and everything else, but then we don't get anywhere. We're not fixing anything, right? And we're not bringing it back to the original point to where they can't screw with it anymore, right? So by doing that, we're kind of just allowing them to kind of keep holding the bull by the horns and not, right? You kind of, instead of them having to
Keeps
let
them in
us,
control.
yeah. So if we abide by the interaction of men and use their own laws against them and freedom against them, they already wrote the remedy and everything else. It's, you kind of see what I'm getting at. So it's when we actually understand that these people take the, we can even look at it as honor, right? These guys have said, right, I agreed to do this, and I'm going to do what I agreed to do. Right? That's very honorable, right? It's just a shame that they chose the wrong contract to honor. Right? You kind of see what I'm getting at, right? So ignorance and everything else, we can't force another person to do what they're not willing to do. So since there's an agreement and everything else to make these so-called honorable men do the honorable thing, we can do it, right? Without trying to use force or intimidation and all the things that they're using, right? So
yeah, makes sense.
okay, because remember, there's a few ways that we can actually vest lands, because just like look at my predicament right now for myself. They're forcing. I went to BC and I claimed my lands in BC. I came back here to visit my mom, so they arrested me in Manitoba. They're forcing me to reside in Manitoba as fee simple, even after these notices and everything else. Right? So, I'm going to invest this 10 acres they forced me to stay on as a tenant, right? Because you could, if you're renting right now, say you're at, you can claim just that one little spot, and then you can move your domicile wherever you want.
So essentially, because I am being divorced, even as fee simple, you know, they are handing me notices to evict me. So essentially, what you're saying is I can remain here, release, and have my claim for this property, but this doesn't necessarily have to be where I stay. I can also claim or move my domicile, as you say, to where I do want to claim. So I can do that, is what you're saying. And how would that work with moving to a different domicile, as in a different corporation, a different country? You know, if I wanted to, could I mix the two? So because I'm divorced here, then claim lands, because obviously you have to be close to the lands that you're claiming, don't you? So how would that be possible doing that, or is that necessary? Can I just claim lands in Canada after being proven my divorcement here? Oh, I hope that didn't go.
You can do them both at the same time. You can do both of them at the same time. Because remember, they're in different jurisdictions, so you have every jurisdiction. Let's use this reference. Let's say you pick such a big piece of land. Remember, you can claim as many lands as you want, because there is no restriction on how many lands you hold.
Because as long as they're in fee simple or in freehold.
You can hear me?
Yeah, you're back, I think.
Okay. You can claim, because let's say you pick such a big piece of land that it actually takes up 3 jurisdictions. Well, for the piece that is in each jurisdiction, you have to make a separate claim in each jurisdiction for that piece.
Yeah.
There's no minimum amount of land that you can, or I say there's no maximum amount of land you can claim.
So would that mean I would need all of the UK acts, etc., that allow me to do it to, you know, the fee simple subject in this jurisdiction, and then I'd also need the provinces or the acts from Manitoba or BC to obviously allow them to do it to that fee simple subject.
That's it. And then say you wanted land in Australia too. You can do that. You can have a jurisdiction that is out there. I guess you could call it a deed of release for your lands because they're accepting it, but in law they call that confirmation,
I
right?
read a bit about that. I think you
Right.
shared that
So
a week ago or so.
so even with the deed of release, they're just describing the actual deed of release. But once you've actually gotten judgment and the seal of right, then that's your confirmation. So when we go into
You then
land,
use that
right?
rather than having to go
That's
through the
right.
tedious process again.
That's right, because that deed of release shows you I'm not the corporate person. And I'm already standing here as donor. So you don't even have to do the 6 dot and chapter 18 because you've already dealt with that. You've got your deed of release from your original jurisdiction, right? So your live record, right? Your live registration of birth, whatever jurisdiction that's from, is where you should actually be vesting your first life.
Is that compulsory?
It's not compulsory, no, but it would help if, like, because I'm from mine says from Canada, right? From Manitoba. As long as I'm vesting within Canada, I'm vesting within that I granted to. See what I'm getting at? So it'll be because you gotta remember, you're holding lands, and you no longer need a passport or anything else to travel to any of these other countries, right? You'll have a passport, but it'll be a different passport than everybody else, right? And then let's say you've vested in UK, you want to come to Canada, and same thing here. Before you even come to Canada, you're going to be giving notice to the Governor General of Canada and Lieutenant of the province that you're going to be vesting lands in, giving them notice that you're on your way and pause.
Yeah, you're back.
So because you're free, and these are outside jurisdictions, you have to get into a treaty with them before you even go there. So when you vested in the UK and you want, let's say you're going to decide, okay, well now I'm going to move my, right? Well, now you got to get a, when we go to different jurisdictions that don't have release, we get a treaty to make that deed of release, right?
Okay.
So because now you become an individual. If you go to China or you don't actually get a deed of release from the person that is in control of that jurisdiction. When you go there, you could be enslaving yourself just by going there. Because now there's those laws, now there's no way to get out of it. You see what I'm getting at? Because you already bound yourself in the jurisdiction. So getting in done. So traveling is would be more important now than ever because you want to get your releases and everything. As long as they're bound by the common law, they have to abide by that. And getting a charter or an agreement, the jurisdiction that you're traveling into before you go into it.
Yeah, because otherwise you're obviously in agreement again because you have to. They have to have notice, don't they?
That's right.
Of who you are, what your capacity is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So in your country, every one of your states or whatever would be bound by the same thing. So if you leave that federal jurisdiction, can you hear me again?
Yeah.
You leave your federal, right? You'd want any other jurisdiction where you have an actual agreement on paid by head of their state stating this agreement that you have with them under seal. Because you got to remember, any agreement under seal, they cannot dispute it, right? So that's why we do agreements with a corporation under their seal. You didn't get that, did you?
Think you're talking about that's why you need the deed of release under seal.
Well, any agreement you want it under seal, because then they can never dispute it.
Yeah.